Cool.
I am a man from the planets.
A planet man? Boy, wait till the gang hears about this, Silly,
Ooh la la, it's the Special Access Podcast and we are back. You've been granted highest level clearance to the one-stop shop for news, reviews and stories of the weird, wild and wonderfully mysterious haunted planet on which we live. Join us as we investigate all of the fantastic phenomena, incredible claims, felonious fabrications and hilarious high strangeness of the planet Earth. Welcome to Special Access. Welcome back and thank you for tuning in to the latest edition of the SAP. In this episode, we welcome back the guys from SUFON and we're going to be talking about a case from the 80s known as the Night of the Triangles. More on that in a second. But before we get to that, I just want to quickly thank all the listeners who are back for more. You guys are amazing and you're growing. Let me know what you think on Twitter at @D_Logan. And thank you to all the new listeners and followers. Please remember to follow, like, subscribe, comment, share, and most importantly, enjoy. You can find the audio wherever you get your podcasts, and of course, the video is on YouTube. So welcome back to Mike Monder and Emlyn Williams from SUFON, the Swansea UFO Network. Thanks for joining us again, and I'm going to hand over to John to kick things off.
Hi, guys. Hi, Mike. Hi, Emlyn. Welcome back.
Dave.
So we've got Mike and Emlyn from SUFON in Swansea, the Swansea UFO Network, based in South Wales in the UK, for our monthly chat based on the historical cases in Wales. And tonight's chat is a doozy. We're going to be talking about one of the biggest UFO cases ever to happen in Wales, maybe even in the UK or even the world. And it's called the Night of the Triangles. I've really been looking forward to hearing more about this case, not least because I was also one of the witnesses, but because it's an amazing case and it's not that well known in the rest of the world. So we really want to highlight it. So welcome, guys, and let's have a chat about the Night of the Triangles. What can you tell us?
Oh, it's the biggest case you've never heard of.
I had never heard of it. If I'm honest, I had not heard of it before researching this.
Everybody's heard of Rendlesham and Berwyn and Broadhaven and a few others, but nobody's ever heard of. Well, we came up with the name Night of the Triangles just because a big incident needs a name, doesn't it? Because you've got like the Berwyn Mountain incident, you know, and because this was right across South Wales, mostly in the Swansea area, I hasten to add, luckily for us, and to give it a name, it all happened in one night, and there were lots of triangles, so Night of the Triangles. But basically, it was a mass sighting in lots of different areas, quite often at the same time, which shows that there were many, many craft, not just the one. And some witnesses saw 3 triangles all at the same time. Some just saw one, and different shape, different sizes, different dimensions. So, yeah, it's amazing. It's an amazing incident.
So we've got a presentation you guys have put together, and anytime you want me to start that off, we can start that. Are you ready to have a go and just start discussing the case?
Yeah. Put them
Yeah,
Okay, so I'll add the presentation, and we can kick this off.
This is our logo, one of them.
Do we prefer to have a full screen, or do you want to see each other on the left-hand side, guys?
It's up to you.
Okay, yeah.
see each other on the left-hand side.
Yeah, okay, no problem at all. So whenever you're ready then, Mike.
Okay, I go on to the first one.
Yeah.
And that's the one. Orthloin Jones.
Right, yeah. There's a bit of a story to this. The actual witness has passed away in he passed away in 2012. But his son, Phil Jones, son of Orthloin Jones, brilliant Welsh name, we managed to track him down, which was a nightmare because his name's Jones. All we knew was that he was a Phil Jones working in the council. So anyway, I managed to track him down. I just sent an email and it was him, luckily.
That was lucky.
And
wow.
he told us the story of his dad, who was a driving instructor, and the family lived in Long Oaks Avenue in the Uplands area of Swansea, which is just west of the city centre. And Orthloin was just leaving the house at about 6:15 on the evening of the 19th of January 1983, which we called the Night of the Triangles. And he was just leaving the house on the way to pick up a client to give a driving lesson. And just as he got down the bottom of his steps, he heard a noise to his left, and he looked, and he saw a triangle coming over the roof of the house next door, or a couple of doors down, and it was making a sort of like a chug, chug, chug sound. And as he crossed the road, and it dipped at walking speed, and he thought he was going to crash into the house opposite on the other side of the road, but then it rose up again and went over the roof of the house opposite, and it was just missing it by a few inches.
Wow.
And it was about the size of a car. And on each corner of the triangle, there was a pipe or some sort of thing sticking down from each corner with a small white light on the end of it. And the amazing thing about it was that, apart from the thing itself was amazing, but even more amazing was that it was only about 18 inches thick. So as Phil told us himself about what his dad saw, he said if there was any sort of being or person inside it, they would have had to been lying down.
Or maybe it was a drone, that first one.
Could be, yeah. But again, it was at walking speed, and it was heading north to south. You can see that picture there. It's that the red teardrop shape there. That's the location. It was heading north to south, and it was just going over the houses, street to street. And he saw it. It went over the roof of the house opposite, and then he looked between the houses, and he just saw it heading off down away towards the south. And
was there any scanning? Did he see? Did he think it was scanning the ground or the area, or was there any lights coming from it?
No, the only lights he saw it was a black triangle, and the only lights he saw were these small white lights at the end of these appendages, one pointing down, one at each corner. And we actually, when we started filming the series of videos of meeting the witnesses, Night of the Triangles, for YouTube, I think this was actually the first film that we made.
Yeah, this is the first one.
Steve Drewson, myself, Mike, and Lawrence Lowe went out to meet the son, Phil Jones. And yeah, Steve Drewson, unfortunately, he can't be with us this evening, or there would have been three of us talking about it, which should have been, because Steve's done a lot of work on this, and he's actually, I don't know if he'll allow me to say, but he's actually started writing a book about it. So I think we've got a snippet of this video next, haven't we, Mike?
Yes, yeah.
Remember the time of this now. This was 6:15 on this night, okay? Because that time comes up again in a bit.
Okay.
This is his son, Phil Jones.
Yeah, for sure. Well, as I say, my father alighted the property. He was going on to a driving lesson. As he got down to his car here, he noticed his attention was drawn to the roofs of the two houses next door but one, from which he saw a large black craft. It was he described it as being about the size of a family saloon car, triangular in shape. It was blacker than the night sky. Yeah. And then on the three corners of this craft was a small pole. And then at the bottom of that pole was a very bright, small but very bright white light. The vehicle or the craft came between the two houses here. It then descended below the height of the house. At a walking pace, it crossed the road and then ascended back up on several phases. It came up on 2 or 3 phases and just about managed to miss the roof of the house opposite.
Which roof was it?
Number 15.
15. So
That's right, that one there next to the scaffolding. Yeah, yeah,
Oh.
yeah. He said it was that close. He was waiting for the impact to occur. He really did think it was going to crash.
Was there any sound?
It made a sound. It was a very low chook, 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 chook type sound.
Chugging sound.
Like a chugging sound. It was going at what he described as a slow walking pace, and was so narrow, or indeed so low, it had no height to it as such. He said, if any, although it was intelligently controlled, and certainly it was under control, if there was any entity, anything in there, it would have had to have been laying prostrate, and it would have certainly probably not a human being. It was that thin.
So you say it was about, what size was it?
About the size of a family saloon car.
Size of a family saloon
yeah,
car.
regular family car.
When you say it was a triangle shape, what was it, like a equilateral triangle?
Yes, it was. Yeah. As I said, several people were reported as having seen these aircraft in the night sky on that particular night in question. But this is the closest that I'm aware of.
Yeah, this one I've heard that is the lowest.
Yeah,
that I've heard of.
Yeah.
So you can imagine it coming over the roof there.
Sure.
In this stand up again.
In this direction, as I say, it descended. It actually came down below the height of the roof. How long would it take? 5-6 seconds to cross the road at a walking pace.
Yeah.
And then, as I say, it then ascended again, just about cleared that roof, literally by an inch or two. And then my father, having run up here, between the gap in the 2 houses, he noticed it descending again and making its way down there.
Well, when it actually left, did it leave at velocity, or did it just disappear?
Well, my father lost sight of it between these houses. It didn't speed up. The speed was constant. It was a constant, what he described as a slow to medium walking pace. And that's how it ascended over that roof. He ran over here, saw between the 2 houses, the gap there. He managed to watch it descend back down below the house level again and head off in that direction towards the Swansea Bay. And as I say, he said that as far as he was concerned, the speed was continually, it was the same speed.
I wonder if there was any sound coming from that thing.
Well, the only sound that he could hear was a very low, deep, and I'll do it for you. It was a sort of a chook, 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 chook.
He already answered that, and then Lawrence asked him the question, was there any sound? That's good. Should have edited it, Alex. Lawrence obviously wasn't listening. Anyway, that was our first video. It's really good that Phil said he could remember what his dad told him at the time. He was only a young lad himself, but 18 years old, I think he said he was.
It was very detailed, so he obviously did listen very well.
Yeah, and he said his dad maintained this story for years. He never added to it, never embellished it, that's why he remembered it so well. Which is,
I mean, before people start saying, and I called it a drone earlier, but obviously we're not talking about the sort of drones we see these days, you know, with little propellers on that are going up. They didn't exist in 1983. You know, I mean, that is a very strange case there straight away.
Unless it could have been the triangle pop piloted by really little dudes.
Yeah.
Who knows? Anyway, don't forget now, this night was a very quiet, cold, clear night. The stars were out. It was a January night, so it got dark early. And I think a lot of the witnesses were just having their tea, or I don't know if we've got Leanne Gaskins on here. We might skewing.
Yeah, she's one of the towards the end.
She was one of the first witnesses. The first reported on that night. I think hers was about 5:15. I think she was watching Blue Peter on the TV. She just come home from school. We're going to come up to that again in a minute. Right. Who have we got
Let's go to the next one, Mike.
Oh, this is Milan and Byron.
Yeah. Now this is 6:15 as well. So this next one was happening at the exact same time as Orthloin Jones had his side of the mission we just heard about. 2 miles difference. Orthloin was in the uplands. This is in Gosainen, which is about 5 miles to the northwest. Okay. And basically the story is there was these 3 guys. There were 2 brothers, Milan and Byron Balyak, and Roger Williams. They were standing outside Gosainen Working Men's Club Institute. Working Men's Club, yeah, Gosainen Working Men's Club in Brighton Road in Gosainen. They were waiting for the club to play. They were waiting for the club to open up, or they were going in to play snooker or pool or something. So they were just standing there, and they saw a huge triangle, the size, I think Milan called it, the size of a jumbo jet, heading down Brighton Road. Brighton Road runs west to east, and it was got this huge triangle was heading west to east down the road. Opposite, above a row of houses, and it was literally just above the houses. Okay, no sound at all. And I think he said there were lights, blue lights around the edge of it, with white lights underneath. But have we got the video here? He's going to describe what he saw now.
Yeah, we got the video. Do you want me to play the video?
Yeah, I'll just say that they saw this big one, and then followed by, after that had gone, they saw another 2 triangles, big, but smaller than the first one. And these were moving up and down the road, passing each other a couple of times. Okay, let's see the video. That's Milan, the guy.
That night, it was 6:15. We were standing here, and one of our mates, Roger Williams, just looked across the road here, and he screamed out, "What's that?" And as we looked across here, there was the house there. There was a row of white, bluey lights, very small. And as it came over the top of the house, the whole thing tilted. In between these houses here, we could see a triangle shape, a huge triangle shape. But the only lights we could see then was the shape of the triangle, one at the front and one each side of the other side of the triangle with a red light, not in the centre, towards the front. This thing was floating in this direction, very slow. You could walk past it. And we immediately ran over to this side of the road here, and we were actually under it. And where we were astonished, it was just moving so slow. And went in that direction. When one of the boys, when they went out the site completely, we lost it for a while, so they went out the site. And when my brother and his mate went in, they formed Swansea Sound. But when they went in there was 2 smaller triangles in this street here, going up and down, just past each other, like this, but much smaller.
While you were inside,
I was here. These 2 went into Swansea to phone, and I was still out here. I stayed here, and out of nowhere, this street here, there were 2 smaller triangles up and down each other like that, so they completely went out of sight. No sound whatsoever. But this thing here was huge. These were smaller. They were really big, wasn't it? You know, right in front of us here. Yeah.
So initially, then the sighting was opposite the club.
Yeah, right here. Come over that.
What sort of height of it?
What do you say? Right, another length on top of that house there.
It's awkward to say. I just remember the size of it. So yeah. From here, I reckon one corner would be half the height of this again. And going to the point of that one. Yeah. And then going over to sort of centre.
So you say you first came down from the north one?
That's what I saw. I didn't see any of that. So it was a huge triangle from house to house, and in between to the gap. Yeah. So it was that size.
And about 40, 50 foot up there?
Yeah, twice that. Yeah. But I couldn't see anything in between it, apart from the light. And that was it. I looked, but I couldn't see anything. I couldn't see anything in between it. But it was definitely totally different.
So you went in then to my brother went in and Roger went in, right? And as he went in, I stayed here. I said, they've gone now, but I stayed here just have a look around the skies. And then out of nowhere, they just started looking, and it was just there. And it was too small. The triangles going up this street there, down towards there. They're coming up parallel with the road. Yeah, exactly in the straight line there. And slowly, back and forth, just missing each other. Like that. The first one, the drum bit, these have gone into phone. And I just stayed, on the nose around, I looked at the skies. And then it was there, just looked that way. And Ivan said he couldn't see anything between the first one. I could see it was a black shape. It was a black triangle, I could see that. But you couldn't see it. Definitely a craft there. Oh, yes, yeah. But you couldn't see how thick or deep or anything it was. You know what I mean? All you could see was those lights, and you could definitely see the really black shape of the triangle. You could see what shape it was. But you couldn't see what depth it was, nothing like that, It's, flicking down there, you say you went off to the west. Straight in that line, straight down the back, straight in that line down there. How did it turn? Did it maneuver, or did it? Only from when it came over this house here. Yeah. It tilted here. And then you could see it was a triangle, so you couldn't until it came over there. And it tilted. There was always little white lights went off, and it straightened out in between, like Byron said, in between those houses there. And then you could see it was just a light on each point. What sort of time was it? 6:15. 6:15. And it was dark. It was dark, but only just. You know what I mean? It was only just dark. Wasn't it? Well, we've got to be together.
So there we are. You said 6:15. So that was happening at the same time. I had my coordinates wrong there. The road actually runs north-south, not east-west. I got it wrong there. I don't know if you got that, but he saw this huge one. That went off to the east, and while the two of his brother and Roger went in to phone up the local radio station, Swansea Sound, he was standing there looking at the sky, and that's when he saw these two smaller triangles moving up and down the road and passing each other a couple of times, and then they headed off as well.
What did he do the following day, Emlyn?
Yeah. Now, Milan did have an interest in UFOs at the time. He had a collection of books on the subject, and I think he said after this happened, he went home, he got all the books, he took them down the bottom of the garden, he burnt them. It affected him that much. He was quite scared.
He wanted nothing more to do with it.
No, he pulled his curtains closed, and he said the following. It was him that said that. He said the following morning there were a lot of military aircraft flying around.
Oh, really?
In the early morning. So, which is an interesting point.
The behavior of the craft that's been described so far, it sounds, John said it sounds like a drone, but to me it sounds more like a probe, or like it's scanning, especially when he described the two triangles going up and down the street, and then with the first witness with the lights coming off the tips. It just struck me as a fact-finding mission. But I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just how it strikes my ears.
And they were operating in tandem with the big one.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact they were so low, I mean, that is strange. Strange. I mean, but again, if they had that sort of technology, why would they need to be so low to the ground as well? That's a bit strange in itself, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know if we're going to get to your witness, Mark. I think his name is Mark, but he said something interesting. It was like they wanted to be seen, and again, the behavior. The behavior described so far by the two witnesses we've heard backs that up. They're moving very slowly. There's no zipping in and out. You know what I mean?
Just over rooftops.
Exactly.
The first one was. It was crazy.
Mm-hmm. And there's like downpipes coming off them with the lights on the end. That sounds a bit like the Tic Tacs. We've heard the Tic Tacs had appendages coming off them as well, which is a bit strange.
It was only Orthloin Jones that said that they had these appendages. Nobody else has said that. Mm-hmm. But he was, I think, out of all of them, I think he might have been the closest to one of the triangles. Because, he was
below the roof level,
less than a house height above him.
Yeah.
We'll see.
What?
We'll see. There is more witnesses.
Yeah,
him on.
yeah, we better crack on. There's loads. Yeah. That was Steve Drewson. That was in the video, asking the question. The one that looks like Carl Sagan. You know the one?
Yeah.
When I first met Steve, I said, "God, you look like Carl Sagan." And he said, "Who's that?" You'd never heard of it.
Right.
But
Where are we now?
Ken Morse, Emlyn.
Ken Morse. Right. This is in Mike's stamping ground in Bishopston. This is we're a bit disjointed here in the timings, but anyway, this is a bit later in the evening. This is about between 8 p.m. and 9 p.m. And this guy was, I think he was a BT engineer, but he was at home for the evening. I think his wife had gone out, and he was sitting down watching the TV on his own. All of a sudden, the lights went out. It was a power cut, and he got up, looked out the window to see if the whole area had been blacked out, or was it just his own house? And he saw 3 lights in the shape of a triangle heading west to east over Bishopston and over towards Swansea Bay. He opened the window and to see if there was any sound. There was no sound at all. And he couldn't actually see the outline of the triangle. It was just these 3 lights in the shape of a triangle, but they were moving perfectly in together, which suggests that they were actually 3 lights on a craft. Yeah. And we went out to see Ken, and he told us what he saw. Got that video?
Yeah, hang on. Yeah. His observations.
Yeah, he sent us a very good report about this that he wrote himself.
3 blue-white lights were equally bright, much brighter than any star or planet, well-defined and did not sparkle or flash. There was nothing visible between the lights, and thus no black triangle or ceiling light in evidence. There was no other navigation lights, red, green, or any strobe rotating beacon lights of any kind to make me think they were commercial or military aircraft. It was completely silent. The relative distance between the lights was maintained until I could no longer see it. The lights did not illuminate anything on the ground or any part of the craft as far as I could see. The lights were still visible as it flew eastward, suggesting they were 180-degree lights and not just downward-facing spotlights. There's nothing else unusual in my field of view. Transatlantic commercial planes flying over at a height of 35,000 feet and around 500 miles per hour have very faint lights and can be heard. Flight radar for altitude and information. Taking all the above into account, it would seem to indicate that what I saw was likely to be a large, low-flying, slow-moving, possibly solid triangular object with a bright light at each corner. I have observed meteor showers, a comet, faint Earth satellites, iridium satellites, flares, and an International Space Station. None of these bear any resemblance to what I saw that night. I have never seen anything in the sky before or since that couldn't be explained. The following day, the Evening Post carried some of the witness stories of the sightings that occurred that night. One explanation I remember was high altitude refueling. If what I saw was high altitude refueling, they must have had a very long fuel lines, because at 35,000 foot, I would estimate they must have been over a mile apart, not to mention having incredibly bright lights. High altitude refueling involves a leading tanker plane followed by yards behind the plane being refueled. I'm guessing at that height at night, it would have looked like one aircraft and not 3 separated by a considerable distance. If the power had not gone off caused by the object, I would not have been looking out of the window. I would have missed it. I may have been the only person to witness this particular sighting over Bishopston. It appears to be very similar to the recent sighting over the Converin Club. That was Ken Morse in 2015. But this shows the track that he saw it going in.
Yeah.
From Bishopston going over to Swansea Bay.
Yeah. This is a large black triangle. I suppose it could have been more in the size that the Milan brothers and Roger Williams saw. Obviously, it was a different time and a different location. It was about an hour or two later.
You've got his video now. That's showed you another map.
The TV on, sat down there, and within a matter of minutes, the power went off. Now, this was a fairly regular occurrence up here because at the time we had three-phase open wires. They used to blow about in the wind and short out, and obviously that was off for a while then. But on this particular night, there was no wind, it was a clear night, and the power went off. So I did what I usually do under those circumstances. I used to get up, look through the window to look at the houses over on Old Way to see whether they still had power on, and if they did, it was just a problem in our lane.
Mm-hmm.
But on this particular night, they were off as well. And whilst looking out to the window, my attention was immediately drawn to three brilliant bluish-white lights forming a triangle that was slowly moving overhead. Now, I knew that from sort of things that I'd read in the past that this was one of the famous black triangles. Not that I could see it was solid, all I could see were the three lights. So I dared not take my eyes off it in case anything happened. So I moved over to this end of the window, opened the window frame, and just listened. And there was absolute silence. Now, we're in a very quiet lane. We're quite away from the road, so we're used to not hearing anything.
So if we go to the window, could you point to the exact part of the sky where you saw?
Yes, okay. So I was sitting there, so I would have just walked up to the window to look at the houses you can see across the village, on the other side of the road there, over in Old Way. And normally they have got one or two lights on in their houses there, which I can see from here. On that particular instance, there was nothing visible. And I was probably standing reasonably close to the window when my attention was drawn up to that angle there. So as I was standing here looking out the window to see whether the lights were on over there, I noticed three bright white lights in a triangular formation that had just passed over the lane, and the back two lights lined up accurately with the run of our gutter in there, which to me indicated that it was crossing the lane at 90 degrees. It just carried on very, very slowly over there, and I then moved to open the window to have a listen. And even now you can hear that there's virtually no sound at all. So I watched it from here for a while until it passed over the trees over there and then got fainter and fainter and fainter as it disappeared in the distance over to West Cross and ultimately out over Swansea Bay, presumably.
Okay, so this would have been a west to easterly direction.
A west to east, yeah.
What do you say those lights on it? How bright were the lights? I mean, when you're looking at a jet, you mentioned before to us, I think, that there was you see jets going across from London,
yes.
New York, etc.
The jets have strobe lights on them, which are just barely visible.
Exactly.
These lights, I would estimate, are about as bright as Venus or the space station going over.
Okay, and about the same size?
About the same size. You could see it wasn't a spot of light. It actually had a physical shape. It appeared to be round.
And that was difficult. Can you estimate the height of the object?
It's very difficult without any cross-reference to see if anybody else had seen it. We would have been able to say that, taking sort of triangulation from different areas, we could have worked out the height presumably. But I would say that going from the angle and the speed at which it travelled across there, initially I thought it would have to be at sort of commercial airline height, because it was going about the speed that a plane would be going. But then thinking about it, if that was at the same height as a commercial flight, the lights on it would have been brilliantly bright and very large. And but that was based purely on the speed that it was travelling. Now then, considering that commercial flights go over at about 35,000 feet, I'm really reasonably certain that this was no way anywhere much higher than possibly 500 to 1,000 feet.
Okay. You couldn't physically make any sort of physical form of it at all?
No, nothing at all. It was exactly the same colour as the background sky.
So you just it was one object?
It seemed to be one object with three lights. They didn't vary in distance apart at all. They maintained the formation as they was.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks to Lawrence Lowe, who was doing the filming. He did quite a bit of filming with us in those days. Yeah, I've often wondered whether his experience seeing the UFO influenced his choice of wallpaper.
Yeah.
For the little squares rather than triangles, maybe not. But yeah, that was an interesting one. It's particularly that there was a power outage as the object went over. It was mentioned in the Evening Post the following day about the power outage, and Evening Post, true to form, they contacted the South Wales Electricity, who told them that they often have local power outages caused by branches of trees falling on power lines during strong winds. None of them questioned the fact that it was a very quiet, still night and there was no wind.
Yeah.
And the power thing comes up again a bit later. It's a very interesting point. Yeah, that was Bishopston, but that was a bit later in the evening. We've still got quite a few earlier on at tea time coming up.
I didn't go on to the next one, Mike.
Yeah, I didn't put them in order of times. I just put them in order how we had them.
Yeah.
This one is Mark Rayworth.
Yeah, this is Mark. This was he was 8 years old at the time, and he was with his mother and sister, and a friend. They were leaving their house on Town Hill Road, opposite the police station, and it was early evening. He doesn't know the exact time, but it was dark, and they saw two equilateral triangular shapes objects above them, which he described as massive in size and almost stationary. So they were moving very, very slowly in the direction of Mumbles. And these were out over the bay. I don't know if you know, Town Hill is the hill above, just immediately to the north of the city centre. And these were heading out over the bay in the direction of Mumbles. So I think we got a video of him here, have we?
Yes.
I don't want to say too much because we're just repeating it then when we see the video.
Yeah. Mark, what can you tell us about that night? I was going walking my friend home. It was roughly around 7. I did confirm that with my mother. We just got to the gate there, started walking up, and my mother said, "Look at that, that's what I heard." And we looked up at the sky, and right there was two huge triangles, biggest things I've ever seen. One in front of the other. The left one was in front of the right one, just travelling out to sea very slowly. No noise to them at all. I remember the big white rings underneath them and the lights going off all over them. So you see the two triangles? Two. Yeah. What sort of height were they like? I would say roughly, and this would be guessing now, but roughly around 500. Yeah. How old are you at the time? 8. It's difficult for you to remember all the exact details. Yeah. But yeah, you can do your best then. So. I just remember the size of them. Yeah. I say if they were down here, I would say they were bigger than 2 foot pictures, easy. How long were you watching them for? Were they sort of static? We were here for about 20 minutes. We were here, roughly. So they're moving quite slowly then, are they? They hardly moved. By the time we left, they'd hardly moved. So and no sound whatsoever? No sound at all. Nothing at all. And it's my mother that said, "Let's go," in the end, because we had to take my friend home. Yeah. Because his mother was waiting. So what were the lighting conditions like? Were the street lights on? The street lights were coming on. My mother confirmed to me that it was just getting dark. So I thought it was dark, but she confirmed it was just getting dark. It was. And, were there any lights displayed on these objects? Yeah, there was a white ring underneath, and there was, I remember, yellow lights, white lights going off all over it. So it's like as if they wanted to be seen. What was the depth It was deep.
The way I imagine it,
You mean the thickness of the craft?
The thickness, yeah. I wouldn't know the exact thickness, but it was quite deep. But looking at it, they looked shallow, but they weren't because they were just too big.
So you say they're heading south, yeah?
Yeah. So if that's south,
Lawrence, if we could turn and get a shot of the. We could get Mark pointing up to exactly where they were instead. Right?
Just there.
Okay. Right. Yeah. So that's that's we're looking southeast there, so they'd be heading left to right towards the beach, basically.
They went straight out to the beach. Yeah.
That's Mark.
Yeah, and I
That's
think
wild. That is wild.
Yeah.
I mean, the size of 2 football fields is colossal. You know, you'd think that hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people must have seen this.
Well, good few did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you ever? I'm sorry to interrupt. Have you spoken to many witnesses regarding the night of the triangles who have chosen not to come forward publicly?
Yeah, there was one guy came to. I give a presentation at one of our monthly meetings in the early days, and I like in the Welcome Inn, and I advertise it in the Evening Post, talking about the night when lots of triangles were seen on Swansea, and this guy came and he told us his story. He didn't want to give his name, and then we never saw him since.
He wanted to get it off his chest, didn't he? He'd been holding it for so many years.
Yeah, but he saw it in Landor, and he was actually looking down on it because he was on a hill. It was very low in the valley, where the Liberty Stadium is now in Swansea, the football stadium in that area. And,
so how did he describe the top of the craft? Well, if he's looking down on it, how was his description of that? Do you remember?
What did he say? I think he saw these three. Got it, yeah, actually. He saw the 3 lights on the dark craft moving slowly.
Do you want to just prep? Yeah, go ahead.
That was one instance where nobody reported at the time. Well, most of the people who we've been speaking to didn't report it. A few we've managed to track down because they did report it because it was in the Evening Post. And a lot of people say, "Oh, I saw this triangle, yeah," and it was in the Evening Post the following night, and there was a drawing on the article, and it sticks in people's mind, which is really good because we can date their sighting, that we can put them in the night of the triangles rather than on a different night.
And we've got to remember that although things are changing in this topic now and the stigma is going away now, in 1983, it certainly wasn't going away. And a lot of people wouldn't want to be associated with something like this because they would have been seen to be crazy people.
That's the drawing that was in the Evening Post.
Yeah.
Now that was drawn by a lady called June Thomas.
We've got to get to those. Come on.
No, we haven't got a video. We haven't got a video of her. So
no, but we got her sighted and her drawings to come.
All right, okay.
Let's move on to the next one then.
Yeah.
People stuck in their minds anyway.
Where is this then? Hang on.
Oh, that's Natalie.
Yeah.
Now, right, going back to the first one we saw, Orthloin Jones, yeah?
Yeah.
At 6:15, 2 streets down in Beechwood Avenue in the Uplands. Natalie Bowden was 13-year-old girl. And
I saw this video today. I was shocked. She said some things that shocked me. So, yeah, carry on, yeah.
Right. Remember Mark Rayworth, the last one, said it was like a big ring of lights underneath the triangle?
Yeah.
Well, Natalie described what she called a stadium of lights. It was like a stadium, like a football stadium, underneath the craft.
It's as if she was underneath it.
It was just over the house, and it was static. It wasn't moving at all. But she can't. It was so big she couldn't see the edges of it. So whether it was triangular or square or round, she can't remember. But I'm not going to say anymore. Let Natalie tell us in their own words.
Just for the record, this is not to convince anyone. This is, my story for me. I don't need to convince anyone, okay? So, in this house, I was 13. I was sitting in the back room, which is next to the kitchen in the annex. And one evening, I was sitting with my dog watching TV, and I just had an urge to get up and go out, and don't know why. But come through the house, the dog doesn't follow me. Through the camera?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
What's talk to me on the camera?
Okay. So I came out from the back room, just came out to the front and stood on this step right here. And in the sky, 30 feet above that house over there, is a massive UFO. The central part of it is, as I said before, it's a stadium shape, but the windows are like this size, but there's a lot of lights, and I thought the lights were creams and ochres and pinks and all soft kind of colours, and they were all different. I thought it was trying to say something to me in my in my head, but I was also standing there thinking, well, what is it doing there? I didn't see the circumference of it because it was immense. It was a black sky. All I was focusing on was the lights underneath. So I'm looking at it, wondering why it's there. For 5 minutes, I'm standing there wondering whether it needs to walk in the park. I'm trying to make sense of what I'm seeing and logically explain it in my own head. So I couldn't make any sense of it. And then I thought, people are thinking I'm going to be a nutter, so I better go. So I started screaming into the house to call my brother, my sister, and my stepfather. So they came out, and because I was causing so much commotion, the neighbours in the street had come out. So I said 2 across there, 2 up here, 1 across the. So basically, in the end, there was about 9, 10 of us looking at this thing. The other thing is that it wasn't cold anymore. The sound in the street, it felt like a pin could get dropped. You could hear a pin drop. It was that kind of, just stillness, complete stillness. No sound out of this thing that's there. But when my stepfather and my sister finally come out, they stand on where you two are, and they're looking at it, and I'm like, can you believe it? It's a UFO. And he was like, wow, yeah, UFO. But no excitement or interest at all. Just kind of like a dull, oh yeah, UFO. I'll put at this point, my stepfather and my sister didn't get along. I'm doing this to set the scene because it's not normal what they did next. He walked in and I said, what are you doing? And he's like, I've seen enough. So he steps down mechanically but fluidly, follows, and my sister does exactly the same. And I'm like, Ashley, what are you doing? She didn't even answer me, she just followed him in, which is not normal. Like I say, she would never ever, just out of stubbornness. So they went in and I'm like, well, I'm watching it go, so I'm standing there. So it's been 5 minutes I was out on my own. I called them out. They've been out there for 5 minutes. They've gone in. And I'm just standing there and I'm just watching it, and I'm kind of looking at the lights, wondering, just asking it questions mentally, telepathically. If I was like sending it, like, what's going on? Why are you there? What are you doing? Take me away. I even asked it to give me another perspective. I'm bored of it. Come on. As a kid, you're just joking around. I was just looking for something and some logic and some sense. So after another 5, maybe 10 minutes, I was just really I was just looking at it, and then all of a sudden it wasn't there. As clear as I'm looking at you two. I didn't see you move, but you're just not there anymore. It's just blank space. I could see the stars. It'd gone cold. It was windier. That stillness. And there was nobody on the street but me. I looked across all the houses. There's no one there. But what I saw was the central bit. Like I said, I couldn't see the circumference of it. But I know that my sister, we discussed it when we went back in. I went back in kind of really just gutted and upset and wound up. But, I didn't see it go. That's where I was there. I just wanted to see it move. And so I went in, and my stepfather, being the joking boy, said, did you see your UFO go? And I was like, your UFO? And I'm like, no. I just couldn't make any sense out of it. And my sister, had said that she didn't. We didn't discuss it. That's the weird thing about all this, is that we didn't discuss it with the neighbours ever again. Nothing was discussed the next day. No one talked. the next morning, or the next, my stepfather got the newspaper, the Evening Post, and I just opened it on a page, went there's a UFO, and it said satellite out of orbit in big letters, I think. So there's a little story there. Big letters, satellite out of orbit, or satellite, I think it said. And I can't. That's what I remember. Just big box saying satellite, and I was like, "Yeah, is it?" But
Yeah, that was in the Evening Post. There was lots of theories about what it could be. The authorities saying it was planes refueling. There was a Cosmos satellite, a Russian satellite thing, due to re-enter the atmosphere on the same day. So they were putting it down to that.
Weather balloon, swamp gas.
Yeah, that's sort of in that
Venus.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Interesting point. What Natalie said there was that when it was happening, everything was very still.
Yeah, that was my. I picked up on that. I couldn't believe it when I remember Mike telling me before about. You said something. He said to me that was very similar to what somebody else has seen, and I never caught on to what he was on about. And you said the same thing to me when you interviewed me, Emlyn. That somebody else had said something similar, and I never knew that it was this. And I watched this video today, and I couldn't believe. I sent Mike a message. Was it today or yesterday? No, I can't remember. It was either today or yesterday.
What she said was that it's as if everything was quiet and still. That the world had stopped.
Yeah.
Right. Now there was another witness in a woman called Carol in Cardiff. Carol Griffiths, I think.
Yeah, we'll get to her later.
Yeah, but she says about everything was sort of still and quiet, and everything had been switched off. And Jenny Randalls interviewed her at the time. Do you know the ufologist Jenny Randalls?
Yeah.
And she'd met a lot of UFO witnesses who said something similar, and she had a name for it. It escapes me now. No, it's gone. Yeah, she gave it a name, this sort of stillness. But she said she wanted to see it go. This Natalie was saying that. And she said she was waiting. She wanted to see it do something because it was just sitting there. And she waited and waited. All of a sudden, it wasn't there anymore. And the people in the street looking weren't there anymore, which suggests to me that it was missing time.
Yeah.
Part of her memory had been wiped. And a couple of days later, she was in the shower washing her hair, and she found a raised area on her head, and there was a little bald patch, which she still has to this day. No hair grows on it at all.
It's about the size of a 2p piece, and it's raised, domed. Yeah.
I took a photograph of it at the time. I got it somewhere. Could there be?
That's wild.
I'm conjecture now, but could there be some kind of something under her skin? Like you hear about implants, don't you? So
has she ever thought about an MRI or something like that to scan, see what's there?
Maybe, yeah.
I'd want to know.
18 years later, a local young lad, Neil Spring, who was doing a lot of UFO work.
I've read that, but I've read his book, yeah.
He contacted Natalie, or she contacted him, I can't remember. And he wanted to set up a hypnosis session with her, but don't think it came to fruition. But something that we might be able to pursue. Another interesting thing Natalie said was that the fact her sister and her stepfather, they were just disinterested.
Yeah, that was the other thing that hit me. I've had the same thing all my life with people. You know, I've been at firework displays and I've pointed out things in the sky, and I even had a laser pen and pointed the one time, and I was literally showing everyone, look at that, and it was complete disinterest. Complete. It was shocking. You know, it was like, there's a UFO. Don't you want to see a UFO? I mean, most people would say, yeah, I'd love to see a UFO for myself. But every time I pointed them out, total disinterest.
Natalie said that she was watching TV or something, and she had a notion to go outside, which is why she went outside. And then she saw this thing. She called her stepfather and her sister. It's as if it was meant for her to see, but not them.
Yeah,
they were sort of like phased out. They weren't interested. I think, that's the thing. Yeah, years later, when Neil Spring contacted her, she contacted her sister to ask about it. Years later, and her sister thought Oh, that was a dream. I dreamt that, didn't I?
Mad.
And a stepdad couldn't remember it at all, even as a dream.
And the fact that there was 10 neighbours outside and you've never heard from those 10 neighbours, and yet it's clearly the same night as everyone else was seeing the same things going on right across South Wales. So it certainly happened. This is not something she's imagined. Yeah, because there's 60 plus other witnesses. Yeah, it's very, very strange. And the fact she's saying it was rooftop level as well, similar to the guy that's just up the next street up.
Yeah, well, there's 2 streets up. This is actually a mistake. I call it Beechwood Avenue. It's Beechwood Road, it is. You got Long Oaks Avenue, where Orthloin was living. Then you got Gower Road. And I think 2 streets down from that then is Beechwood Road. And, yeah, it's a good one, that. And she's
very credible. Very credible, I thought.
Also, she asked her mother if she'd had any head trauma or any injuries to her head to see if that lump was caused by anything. And Mum said, no, you haven't had any head traumas or anything. No, nothing to be in hospital for with your head. So there's no reason for that lump to be there.
Yeah.
Anyway, next.
This is Simon Matthews. In an area of Neath near Brinkhoch, Daphne Road, I think it's called.
Yes.
Young lad, he was about 12 years old, out on his bike outside and looking down towards the southwest, towards Swansea, where BP Llandarcy had an oil refinery. BP had a big oil refinery at Llandarcy, which is now no longer there anymore. He saw red lights in triangular formation over the refinery. Let's see what Simon says.
As I say, I was 12 at the time. I'm 47 now. At the time, I was living in 31 Daphne Road, which is this house here on the corner. And at the time I lived there, there was no hedge row around the house. It was just the pavement straight onto the grass. I was out playing on my BMX right on the corner there, right by the pavement on my BMX. And it was already gone dark. It was pitch dark, even though it was in the evening, but because it was January, it was dark. I rolled my bike over towards the corner of the street here, between Daphne Close and Daphne Road. And BP Llandarcy oil refineries on the top of the hill there, the top of the A465. And I could see 2 triangular craft hovering above the works. The 2 triangular craft were consisted of 6 red lights in total. So there's 3 red lights on each triangular craft, on each of the corners of the triangle. I just put my glasses down. And the craft was sort of moving slowly over the works, sort of giving it that sort of motion, almost as though they were scanning the area below them. And I watched it, I was startled. I immediately knew something strange was happening. I knew I was witnessing something amazing. Didn't know what it was, but I knew there was something strange going on. I watched it for a short while, and then I ran into my house around the back door into the kitchen, and I shouted, Mum, come and look at this with me. There's UFOs above BP. And she wouldn't come out. She was cleaning or doing some of the housework like she was always doing. And she wouldn't come with me, and I begged her to come out, but she wouldn't come out. So anyway, I came back out, and I watched them for a bit. I can't remember what happened then, but I skipped forward a day, and then the next day, on the front page of the Evening Post, was this story, 100 spot mystery lights over city. And I showed that story to my mother, and she couldn't believe it. She couldn't believe the story, and she regretted so much not coming out to see the lights with me, to see the craft with me. So that's pretty much the story, really.
You came up here last week and you took a photograph, and you've made a mock-up.
No, I actually took video. I set my tripod up there, took a video of the same view.
You've made a CGI reconstruction of it.
Yeah.
And here it is. It's quite a few miles away, but it's another perspective of...
Yeah. How many miles would you say that is? You know, it's about 2-point-something miles away.
Yeah, it's about 2 to 3 miles away.
Yeah. It shows how large they must have been because I could clearly see them. I could clearly see them.
Well, the first witness is you're the first witness that we tracked down outside Swansea. Apart from
it's incredible.
Apart from one in Skewin, which is sort of borderline.
It's incredible because look at that sky you can see.
Simon actually contacted us after we had a bit of publicity in the paper for about what we do in SUFON, and I think I mentioned something about this night we called the Night of the Triangles, where lots of triangle craft were seen in January 1983, and then he sent me an email or a message on Facebook, I can't remember which, but he said that when he saw this in the paper, he was having his tea and he nearly choked. He said, "Oh my God, my sightings in the paper! They've even got a name for it, the Night of the Triangles." So he was really excited, and he's so enthusiastic. He's actually making a film, and he's, as you can see, he's pretty good with computer graphics, and he's tracked down a couple of witnesses himself, and he's making a film called Triangles, I believe, isn't he?
That's exciting.
It is.
Looks good.
We are going to have some kind of input in this. We're going to help each other because he's managed to track a few witnesses down that we didn't know about, and he wants to interview the ones we've met so we can work together on this. That's a picture of Kilvey Hill, which there's a radio mast on top of Kilvey Hill, which is a big hill above next to the city centre, and a lot of the witnesses said that they saw this craft over Kilvey Hill. So it's nice reconstruction he's made there.
Yeah, Simon actually showed us a trailer last night. The guys, didn't he? We saw it for the first time. It's very professionally well put together, and I think it's going to be. He's going to hope to try and get it on Prime or on Netflix or something, and it looks good enough to get on them as well. Very well.
His sighting was quite distant. It was a few miles away, but it had such a profound effect on him that he's doing this now. All these years later.
He's based his triangle for the film on what Mark Rayworth saw.
Yeah. He's got a quote at the bottom there on the poster. It travelled from Kilvey Hill over to Llandarcy in about a second. Now that was a quote from Leanne Gaskins. Is she next?
No, she is coming up though.
We haven't got a video of her, but Steve and I went to her house in Skewin. She still lives in Skewin, and got the full story from her. And what she says is pretty amazing. We'll come to that in a minute now if we've got time. Over an hour now. What's next, Mike?
This one is Bryn Mill, Rob O'Shea.
Rob O'Shea, yeah. Now Rob was with his mate Conrad Edwards. They were about 12 years old at the time, I think, and they were in the Bryn Mill area of Swansea, and I think they'd been on a paper round or they were coming back from rugby. Let's hear what Rob says.
The image which is in my head, I can remember seeing that image in the paper on the front page where there was like UFOs, spotters, and whatever there, and it had the triangle with the 4 or the 3 lights. And I didn't even think. I went,
that's what I said. Yeah, that was Jim Thomas's. Was a lady who was leaving. She was working in. Spontex.
Oh right, okay.
Down in the South Dock. She was leaving work and she actually saw 3. She reported in the post that she saw 2, but she told us it was 3 because she just saw one disappearing behind the building because the linger in the night. And then she saw these two others.
Because for me, as I said, it was very difficult to get a gauge about the size. Big. I mean, if I'm trying to describe to you size-wise, if I can look for a comparison. Go back. If I was trying to sort of say from that wire, say about halfway down to possibly the next wire in the side, that would give you any kind of relation to possibly size.
From there
down to there, I would probably
say in the back.
No, maybe not as far down as that, but it was certainly from there, say to there, in terms of the length of it going back.
That's it.
But because it was coming up, that's what I seem to recall.
Do you have a feeling it was really, really big?
Yes, and I had the feeling as well it was quite low. But as I said, it came up.
Maybe it's because of the size it was. You would think if it was really, really high, it would be.
Yeah, exactly. Because
it
was dark, and as I said in the past, you'd often see aircraft where they would have delayed sound if they were further away or maybe whatever. but there was just no sound. And I think that was the part. It was definitely mechanical, I say, because obviously the lights there. So I can't remember whether they were flashing.
I can't remember any features underneath it.
I couldn't see. I could just see the silhouette. I could literally just see the silhouette. As I said, it came across and went that way. I said, we're just no sound. There was no sound.
There's a couple of street lights here. Presumably there was a lamppost of an older type.
Yeah, very possible. Yeah, there probably was.
They weren't LEDs. They would have been
the orangey.
Orangey.
Yes, whatever they were called. Yeah. Sodium. So yes,
so orangey like street lights,
and
it didn't affect your view of it. Then
well, I said because you could see it was a silhouette. As I said, it was quite because it was dark. You could see the silhouette there, but it wasn't as if there was a big contrast, if that makes kind of sense. The light certainly defined where the shape was. But the other thing, as I said, which was quite striking, I think was the speed. It wasn't going very fast. It didn't seem to be going fast at all. And I couldn't understand how something of that size could go that slow and make no noise, if that makes kind of sense.
Yeah, this was just a few streets away from where Natalie was. Again, but go in.
All similar descriptions. It's amazing.
Yeah. I believe he actually knew Natalie.
Yeah, the slow pace seems to be a running theme amongst these stories, definitely.
And the height, very low to the ground, massive, silent. It is impressive. I must admit.
And so we've heard these stories from their general members of the public, but were there any officials who saw this? Trained observers, police?
We will be getting to them though.
Right.
We'll zip through these.
When? I think we've done all the videos now, have we?
No, we got another one.
Oh,
we haven't got another one. We got somebody to talk to us about one.
Yeah, Peter Gas.
It's me.
Oh yeah.
And Peter from Town Hill.
Okay, so you want me to talk about mine, do you? Okay. Okay, I'm going to do this quick because we got so many to go. So I was 15 years old. Are you going to watch a video, or do you want me to talk about it?
You just might as well talk to it. I've got a clip here of you looking at the direction it was going. And next clip then is looking at the leisure centre.
Okay, I was 15 years old. I'm still in school. I literally find myself in a field with no idea of how I got there. I had no memory of the whole day. And literally, I'm looking up at the sky. And as I'm looking at the sky, the whole sky moved. I thought I was looking at stars. I was thinking, oh, what a bright, nice, beautiful, starry night was basically the sort of thoughts going through my head. I hadn't even thought, where am I, or what am I doing here at this point? I was literally looking at the sky and looking at the stars. And then the whole sky moved. And as it moved, I could see that it was a wedge-shaped craft. It was either one wedge-shaped craft or three. I'm not sure, but the front of it, there was a row of lights, just like the Phoenix lights, but much smaller lights and tightly packed. So there was one row of those, and then there was another row. Now I think that was one craft, and then behind that was the same again, 2 more rows, and then same again, 2 more rows. I had no idea what I was doing there, but literally, I'm looking at the sky. The whole sky moves. And as it moves, I suddenly wake from my daze, sort of thing, and I've noticed that it's completely silent. The area around me, I couldn't hear a pin drop, same as Natalie said just now. I felt like I was in a bubble, and I was, away from the rest of the world watching this going on, basically. And but as soon as it moved, I got my bearings. I looked around. There was fog all around the fields. You could see there, I got my bearings because there's a leisure centre you could see in the background there behind Emlyn. And at that time, the leisure centre is closed now, but in 1983, it was still open and all the lights would be on at night. And I looked there and I knew where I was. So I took one more look. I watched this craft move away enough and I thought to myself, this is a bit dodgy. And I literally ran home. I get home, and because I didn't know where I'd been all day, I get to the front door, and I didn't see anyone all the way home. That was strange in itself because it was a very busy estate. And at that time, 1983, all the neighbours knew each other. We used to, everyone would go to each other's homes and always be out on the streets chatting. But the streets were completely empty. There wasn't a car driving around again, which was strange. So I get home and I think to myself, I'm going to get into trouble. I don't know where I've been all day. So I'll go around the back of the house. And I literally went around the back of my house, climbed the drain pipe to my house, climbed in through the bathroom window, went to bed. And then I was thinking I'm going to get it in the morning off my parents because I've obviously done something, because I've got no memory of what's going on, or I may have done something. I literally go downstairs for breakfast. Nothing gets said to me apart from my mother saying to me, why didn't you clean your rugby boots yesterday? So I know from that was a Wednesday, because we always used to play the day before. The day this happened was a Wednesday because we always used to play rugby in school on a Wednesday. I hadn't cleaned my rugby boots, which meant I'd been to school because my rugby boots were dirty. My parents didn't say a word to me, and so I took advantage of the fact I thought I'd got away with it, and I never spoke to my parents about it. We actually moved home about 2 weeks after the event, so we moved into Newport, away from Caldecott, which is the school I used to go to. So I didn't feel, I only had weeks left in school, and I was going to be leaving school. So I didn't feel I needed to tell my friends. I didn't tell my parents. I didn't tell a soul. I literally, until about 12 months ago, I'd never told anyone on the planet. And then I happened to mention, because I just recently joined UFO Twitter, and I mentioned to the author Bruce Fenton about what had happened with me and what I'd seen, and he said to me, that sounds like the Night of the Triangles. And you guys know Bruce because he comes to your meetings, and that's how you guys knew him. I didn't know any of this at that time, and he basically put me onto it, and I worked out the dates, and it was exactly the same date. Yeah, I knew the date because we moved the same year, and everything else fitted for me. Yeah. So that was basically my case. So like you say, it fitted. With Natalie saying about it was like a pin drop, and it all. I couldn't believe it when I heard her say that. It was like exactly the same sort of thing.
Yeah, you had missing time as well. She did.
Yeah, I had got about an hour and a half of missing time or something like that.
And do you have any?
We've mentioned at the beginning, this is Underwood, which is east of Newport. So this is the first one we're looking at tonight, outside Swansea area. We did Neath, and I remember what Jenny Randalls called it now when she interviewed the witness from Cardiff, Carol Griffiths. She called it the Oz factor.
What was it? Sorry?
Oz factor.
The Oz factor, like
Oz
the Wizard
factor.
of Oz. Yeah, it's sort of like everything's quiet and still, like the world has stopped and you're in a bubble, like you said. That's just what Carol said to her.
Exactly like that. Until this thing moved, I felt like I was in a bubble and I was all on my own and I couldn't hear a thing around me. And it was like, as soon as it moved, it was the middle of winter, like we've been saying. It was freezing cold January in the UK. And I stood in that field with a T-shirt and a pair of jeans on with no memory of the day. In fact, no memory of the previous day either. I had zero memory. I didn't remember going to school. I didn't ever say a word to anyone. I mean, it was very strange. It was very strange.
Were you left with any physical traces like that last woman?
I have got a mark on my head as well. Yeah.
Really?
But I don't know whether that was from then. It's only because my wife cut my hair and said, "What's that mark on your head?" I never even knew I had a mark. That was the first time anyone had ever said anything. And it's only because of lockdown and she cut my hair and said, "What's that mark?" And I have got a mark on my head as well. Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
It's quite interesting because Mark also said when he saw his triangles, they hardly moved. And Natalie was looking outside for 5 to 10 minutes and it wasn't moving, so it's quite interesting.
It was the same with mine. It was literally very drifting. It's like there was totally silent. This thing should have fallen out of the sky, Crazy.
Robert Kay said in the last video that it was moving very, very slowly. And he couldn't work out why something so big was moving so slowly and without a sound as well. So,
yeah.
Have we got Peter Watkins' video on here?
Oh, I forgot all about his.
Yeah, Peter was up on Town Hill, just like Mark was, and he saw I've got his thing here. Hang on.
No, I forgot all about Peter's.
Yeah, I got Peter's thing here on my paper file. He was living in Tyler Crescent in Town Hill, which overlooks Swansea Bay facing south. And he'd gone out to the car when he noticed he saw a triangular craft which had lights at each tip. It was silent and approximately at least 500 feet in altitude. The object travelled east to west from Kilvey Hill area towards Sketty. So he saw his going east to west. All right. Mark saw his going sort of very, very slowly towards the south, didn't he?
Yeah. And that's the same ways that Natalie's was sort of, and Phil's was sort of slowly going.
And I think he says this is between 7:30 and 8:30. Right? It was visible for 5 to 10 minutes before it disappeared towards the uplands and Sketty direction over the roofs of houses. He mentioned it to his wife, Claire, when he went back to the house. And then the following day, when he went to work, a colleague of his who lived in Llansamlet, close to the M4 motorway, he saw it as well. So there's another reference to another witness there.
I mean, they were literally over the whole of South Wales, basically, all the way down to Swansea from Newport. And you've even heard cases, you said, from the Bristol Channel, somebody in the Bristol Channel may have seen something, Mike. I seem to remember you telling me during our interview.
We had an unconfirmed report that fishermen down in Ilfracombe had a massive one going over Ilfracombe that went up to the Bristol Channel towards Cardiff. But we can't confirm it because we can't find the witnesses and we can't find any.
It was recorded in the North Devon newspaper, which we've been trying to get hold of. And there was a primary school in Whitchurch in Cardiff called.
I've got it a bit further up.
Eglwys Wen Primary School.
Let's move on now, then, Mike.
You got that coming up, have you? All right.
I think so, yeah. Well, this one is over Mumbles. We've passed all the videos now, so it's just sightings that we from the database.
Yeah, I found a few of the witnesses actually contacted the police, who then passed it on to the MOD, and they have sort of surfaced in the MOD files, which were released years ago. But MOD files, they redact all the personal information, so you don't know who they were.
Yeah.
This is Mumbles, which is around the end of Swansea Bay. There's a red spot there. Yeah. And
for a period of 10 minutes, an observer watched with the naked eye and through binoculars two very bright lights about the length of a Boeing 747 apart. No shape was discernible. The lights were over the lifeguard station, Mum's lifeboat or Coast Guard station, at 2,000 feet maximum altitude, 1 mile away from the observer. Its movements were described as being steady and changing. So
that's a lot higher. Well, that's between 5:30 and 5:45. Okay, so that's before Orthloin Jones, and it's before the guys up in Gosainen, Milan and Byron Balia. Okay.
But this was going on for hours and hours and hours, by the looks of things.
Yeah,
all the way across South Wales.
The earliest we found it is around about 5:15, which should be this one. This is what was written in the Evening Post about Margaret Gaskins and of Lucy Road in Skewin and her children. Well, one of the children mentioned there, 14-year-old Leanne, is the one that Steve Drewson and I went to meet. I won't read that out, but I'll just tell you the story briefly of what she said. In Skewin, which is just to the north of BP Llandarcy oil refinery, which Simon Matthews mentioned earlier, she'd just come home from school, and I think she was watching Blue Peter, and she looked out the window of the living room, which is on the first floor because they live on the side of a hill. And she saw these lights over Kilvey Hill, which is the hill by Swansea with a mast on it, yeah. And it moved from Kilverhill over sort of to the side instantly towards Swansea, and then back to Kilverhill, and then within a second it shot across towards Skewin, appearing over the oil refinery. What she said she saw was this object, this triangular object, was the size of the oil refinery. It was huge, and it had lights all over it like a Christmas tree, all white, bright lights. And she called her father, and the mother came over, and a sister, Kerry. And they were hanging out the window. Well, she was hanging out the window. The window was open, looking at this thing. And it was there for about 5 minutes. And all of a sudden, it just shot straight up into the sky. So this is the same location that Simon saw his over the oil refinery. But what he saw were two separate objects with red lights on. Hers was... her description,
but it correlates exactly what he's basically said, apart from the fact there was two, but maybe they were side by side and she was only seeing a side profile and not seeing the one behind it, sort of thing.
Maybe.
So
yeah. And her description, what she told us, is different to what her mother told the Evening Post on the following day. It's her mother says that the children, they came running into the kitchen full of excitement. At first I didn't believe them, but when I looked out of the window, I could see a sphere of flashing lights which travelled from Kilverhill area over to Baglan Bay. So Baglan Bay is sort of the direction of the oil refinery. Yeah. The whole family were hanging out of the windows of their flat for a better view, and soon neighbours were also peering out. And a lot of the neighbours, Leanne told us, the men actually worked in the oil refinery, so they had particular interest in what was happening. It was all very exciting, said Mrs. Gaskins. We couldn't believe what we were seeing. Later, I heard that the Sea King helicopter from Brodie had been in the area. At first, I thought the flashing lights must have been from that, she said. But then I was told the helicopter was not over the Swansea Bay until 6:20. I don't believe in UFOs. There's got to be a logical explanation for it, but I can't explain what it was I saw. So, pretty basic what was in the Evening Post. Nothing about this huge craft over the oil refinery that the daughter told us about, particularly when it shot straight up into the sky.
Yeah.
But it must have been a couple of miles across, this thing that Leanne saw.
Next question is, what was a helicopter from Brodie doing over Swansea Bay? Brodie is the other side in West Wales.
Yeah, so fake helicopter?
Possibly, yeah.
Here
Possibly.
Yeah, that was over Swansea Bay at 6:20.
Yeah.
Let's go on to the next. Yep.
That's red dots, Kilverhill, isn't it?
Yeah, Brodie mine.
I'm going to have to wrap up in about 10-15 minutes.
Okay.
I think we're going to need to do a part 2 on this. The looks of things.
Yeah. I think we've covered all the main ones that we've heard about.
Yeah, it's quite a few.
Can I address the elephant in the room, the TR3B? What's the likelihood that what all these people are seeing is man-made, being built in Brecon, and maybe just being tested out on that night?
It's the usual thing. Why would they be testing it inches over rooftops in a populated area in a city, Wales' second city, Swansea, and Cardiff? At the same time, the reports in Cardiff were just after 5 o'clock and 6 o'clock, and it was the same time in Swansea.
And supposedly we're going to have anti-gravity craft with amazing propulsion systems that can just literally hang in the sky, miles wide craft in some cases. They're not ours. We can discount them being ours, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
And there was one the size of a car. Do you remember we did an interview on BBC Radio once, and the BBC, true to fashion, they consulted an expert in the field, an aeronautics engineer, remember? And his theory was that what people were seeing were airships. He said at the time, 1980, the Royal Navy were experimenting with a blimp which had lights on it, and maybe people were mistaking the three lights in a triangular formation below underneath of an airship. No.
Unbelievable.
Big racket as well. These propellers.
So I'll just say at this point, guys, I contacted Nick Pope, who used to be a member of the MOD and was the person supposedly looking into UFOs between 1991 and 1994. So I contacted him today, and he came back to me straight away. Good old Nick, and he said, with apologies, I can't recall this wave of sightings. My time in that job was in between 1991 and 1994. And while I had access to the old files, I don't remember these ones. So I just want to get that in there now for the record that we did contact, somebody who was in the MOD at the time. And something else I did today, I sent off the first, I think it's the first, maybe it's not the first, Freedom of Information request just about this case. I've basically sent that to the MOD and to the National Archives because I know there's a time limit on these things, and I'll follow that up, and I'll make sure that if we find any information, we'll get that posted to SUFON and we can get it on the website, and we'll do a follow-up video on this and see whether we can do any more with it.
We've got there's a few more witnesses that we haven't mentioned. There's a couple of CID officers. So
do you want to do a part two?
Steve and I interviewed these two CID guys. We want to talk about that. There's also a new one which we film in next week, hopefully.
Okay. Yeah,
let's do a follow-up. Let's do a part one on this, and because there's so much more to discuss for the looks of things.
We could be here for another hour discussing what we have got left to discuss.
And
it's pretty incredible already what we've seen.
I've got a comment more than a question. I think it's I think it's odd that in the 70s you have the Broadhaven Welsh, so-called Welsh Triangle, then you have the Night of the Triangles in the 80s, and now we have Kaz's testimony of seeing a massive triangle in Penturk. It always comes back to triangles in South Wales for some reason, which is why I asked that man-made craft question earlier.
Yeah, we were up in, Mike and I were up in Kaz's house last week. She did a bit of Skywatch there with a few other people.
Yeah.
And I remember I was telling somebody that, the thing that they saw was triangular shape, but it was up on end rather than flat.
She described it more as a pyramid, I think, didn't she?
Pyramid. Yeah. The other thing about it was that it was like curved in the bottom, so it was like a pizza piece. If you cut a section of a pizza.
Gotcha. Yeah.
I think I was talking to Dave, one of the witnesses. I was telling him about this because I was looking at the picture that was made about it or of it, and if you continued the curved area, if you continued that right round, you'd end up with a big circle, wouldn't you? And this was just 1/4 of a circle, which is a triangle.
I did. I went onto your website, the SUFON website earlier, and I went to your cases, pressed Control F, find on the page, and just typed in triangle. And it came up with 114 matches for triangle/triangular, and about 30 of those were from the Night of the Triangles. So taking all the rest into account, triangles are nothing new to the people
on our website, which is only Welsh cases we got.
Exactly. Yeah.
If you think of all the things that have been written and said about triangles around the world, Wales is a hotspot for triangles, and yet. Okay, you guys have been out there and been giving presentations on this, but it hasn't leaked out into the worldwide media or on social media. Until now, I think. I mean, I was talking to Grant Cameron yesterday. I'll mention this as well. And Grant has actually asked for a copy of this interview tonight, this presentation you guys have done, because he's really interested, because he's writing a book on this as well, on triangles, and he'd never heard. I mean, again, we really are doing our best to put Wales on the map with showing these historical cases. I think it'll be a good idea to do a follow-up just based on all the other cases, all the other witnesses you've still got to talk about. We've got 2 police officers that saw this that we haven't even spoken about yet. We'll give real credibility. Real credibility to this. If it needs it. I mean, my God, all of the people, the stories, they've all correlated in all the sort of things they've been saying. Rooftop height, football size fields, craft,
slow pace,
it's incredible.
Scanning.
Absolutely incredible.
We got about 60 individual witnesses altogether.
That's amazing.
You've only got 30 on the website. I mean, I know Emlyn's got a few kicking around in his office there, so.
Well, let's hope again. Then we're going to get some more witnesses, like we've had with Kaz Clark. All the publicity that Kaz has been getting, that has brought up new witnesses have come out of the woodwork with that. I mean, we may have more to say on that in the future, guys. I know. So we'll do that at another time. So anyway, thanks ever so much. This has been a brilliant part 1, and we're going to revisit this. So
yeah, thanks everyone for watching.
Night of the Triangles, the greatest case you've never heard of, from the country you've never heard of.
Yeah,
spot on.
Full of places you can't pronounce.
Swansea, saying Swansea.
Okay, let's call that a wrap then, guys.
Absolutely
superb. Absolutely superb.
Right,
might be speaking to you soon.